have Diane here with me today. She is the first guest of the Broken to Brave podcast, and I brought her here to share her story, which I find inspiring, and I hope that you do too. Okay, so I just want to share real quick how Diane and I met. We had actually talked over Instagram, right? For a couple of years. I shared some post. She shared it on her page, and here and there we spoke, and then we ended up in the same business course, June 2022, and I came across her introduction post, which said, well, I will pause there and let you say that part, but I'll finish this sentence. She shared something about herself, and I was like, oh my God, me too. And from then on, we hit it off, and we've been talking nearly every day since then. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it to you. Share something about that moment, what you shared in the post. Tell us about that time period of your life.
Yeah, so I thought it was so wild, right? This is how the universe works. So I guess for everybody, I am... like a child of the universe. I don't even know how to say that. But I posted on this business, program, the group, and I had just shared about that I had a spiritual awakening through becoming a mom. And, I've been an engineer for the past 11 years of my life. I grew up very left brain, very logic brain, very detailed, very, linear thinking. A plus B has to equal C, right or wrong, yes or no, very binary. Then I had this big spiritual awakening when I became a mom, and I just feel like I saw the world through a whole new light, because I ended up actually having postpartum depression, and that really set me on this, I think a lot of people call it a healing journey. I just feel like it's really more about self-discovery and seeing my patterns in my life, and just really bringing awareness to who I am. And I had posted on this business course group hi, I'm Diane, and I woke up from my engineering life, and I've been pursuing trying to figure out what my purpose is here in this life and what I'm here to do. And I've formed a couple of companies since I've was an engineer. I guess I should say I left my engineering job, done a few different things, joined this business group, and now I help women maximize their maternity leave here in California, which is very fulfilling, and I get to use my left brain strategy side.
Their maternity leave. Yes. Who doesn't want more maternity leave?
Everyone. Yeah, everyone does. And everyone should have more. And I mean, without going down in the weeds, here in California, we have a lot of great programs, except for it's just hard to understand. It's hard to figure out how they all work. So anyways, I've broken it down into simple terms that women can understand and explain to them their rights and entitlements, and so they can make the best decisions for them and their baby, knowing how to advocate for themselves with their employer. So, we met through the business group, and we've been talking ever since. And then you had a retreat earlier this year, and I came to the retreat, and I got to do tarot card readings and lead a guided meditation for your group. And it's been such a journey and such a beautiful friendship with you. So I'm really excited to be here and share a little bit about myself today on the podcast. So yay.
Oh, thank you for coming. Yes. And what about, tell us a little bit about your path to reading tarot cards. I mean, you were an engineer, and then now you read tarot cards in addition to this maternity leave program that you have.
Yes.
Doesn't compute.
Yeah, it doesn't for most people. I feel like I was at a holiday mixer for my husband, and he's also an engineer, and people were asking me, oh, what are you doing now? Are you still doing engineering? I'm like, no, I read tarot cards. And I feel like the looks I got were what? It's just literally does not compute would be the perfect way to describe it. I feel like I went through a big awakening, when I had my son back in 2019. I remember thinking okay, I'm going to be the best mom, a perfect mom. I was the perfectionist mom, or at least that's, who I went into motherhood being, and feeling I'm going to do all the right things. I'm going to do better than like what I had when I was a child. I'm going to be so patient. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And when I had him, it was like such a, like I say, it's like an ice bucket of water to the face. It was for me. And having postpartum depression was like really just a manifestation of the fact that I was not prepared for, you know, taking care of somebody else and trying to take care of myself, because I realized my whole life I never took care of me. Just so many insightful moments through that experience, which was so hard, but now I look back with so much gratitude for, because it's changed who I am. So once I kind of, went through that process, and that was several months of therapy and working with different coaches, and I've now worked with healers and all kinds of different things, I started seeing my life change. I think about things like I used to grind my teeth at night, right? So I used to have a mouth guard because I was always so stressed out. I was always so anxious, so everything. And then once I had my sort of spiritual awakening, and then I found this like inner peace, I'm meditating, I'm trying all these different things. I haven't used a mouth guard now in 3 years, right? Since I had this awakening.
Wow.
And yeah, I feel like I have those big tangible moments that I can see, like a huge drastic change.
Yes.
And that's where I'm like, wait a minute, I've changed as a person. Like, I can't go back to who I used to be. And I think there's a lot of smaller pieces as well, but it's been a journey to get where I'm at. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I really think that some of the things that you shared are going to resonate, specifically around identifying as a perfectionist and never taking care of yourself and feeling anxious. Can you say a little bit more about, like, perhaps behaviorally how that showed up for you?
Yeah. So I'm trying to like put myself back into 2019 and I'm not saying that I don't still have those feelings occasionally. I just think I have a deeper bench of resources to manage that now. And I don't sit in those anxious feelings and that discomfort for, like I used to before. But when I used to be a perfectionist, that used to manifest, I guess, in like a physical way where I would try to do everything perfect for my child. We had to have a perfect sleep routine. We had to have the exact wake windows for a 3-month-old, for a 3.5-month-old, for a 4-month. I mean, it was like insane. And then I remember like sleep. I have to be honest, like sleep was like the number one thing for me. I tried to control. I was like, if we can control the sleep, then he will be perfect. And then I remember at nighttime, we'd have like a great stretch of sleep. And then the next night he'd be up all night. And I'm like, what do we do during the day? What did I do? I did something wrong. So then I would be trying to troubleshoot. What did I do wrong to, create this poor sleep last night? And it drove me to, like, I would say insanity, because there's no rhyme or reason. If you have a kid, they have good sleep one day, they don't the next day. And it's not because I did anything wrong, but that's how I was feeling. I was failing as a mom. I screwed up. Something is wrong. I don't know what I'm doing. Everybody else seems like they know better than I do. Nobody was being honest about how they felt or their struggles they were going through. I felt very alone. And yeah, I felt like it came out of control. And then controlling food too. Like, okay, how many ounces of milk is he getting? And how many calories? And how do I know he's fed enough? And okay, what if he doesn't eat every 2 hours? Like, it was just all of these little things where you can go down the Google rabbit hole, right? I feel like it's like the Dr. Google for babies. Like, you can go to so many blogs about anything baby and find 5,000 different opinions. And I learned through my awakening, the only opinion that matters is mine. Like, the only experience that matters is mine. Like, the only choices that matter are mine, not what some guru out there says. So yeah, that's how it was manifesting for me, was like trying to control the environment and the pieces to create the outcome that I wanted, with a lack of awareness that this is a person. Like, they're babies, yeah, but they're people. Like, they do what they do. And we don't know why sometimes,
Yes. And coming from an engineer perspective, they're just not as predictable.
0%, and I think I was looking, what is the secret sauce formula to do A plus B minus C plus D, like, What are my variables? Only changing up one variable. I literally was looking at it like a science experiment, and
Yes.
it just drove me to insanity. And I felt like there was nobody out there that was really talking about that. And I don't know. I think there's a lot of people talking about postpartum depression or anxiety and feeling depressed, but for me, it was like manifesting in like an extreme way of like trying to control my environment to keep myself feeling okay.
To keep yourself feeling okay. Yes. So if you think about these moments and, where it peaked in right after having your son, but you mentioned patterns before, and you mentioned, perfectionist, anxious, teeth grinder, like probably that didn't just suddenly appear, but it just became more obvious. Is that a safe assumption?
Yeah. I was going to say, like, I'm going to weave an answer to this question back to a question you asked, like, how did I get into tarot cards? I didn't finish that thought, but like, one thing that kept me feeling centered was I found a deck of, if anybody's familiar with like oracle cards, there was something called The Universe Has Your Back deck by Gabrielle Bernstein, right? And I found these and I used to pull a card every single day, and it just has like beautiful messages, like, I choose to see the world through the lens of love, like just really sweet like messages. And that became a ritual for me. That was something I could control, right? Like I could pull a card every day and I could choose to say, okay, I'm going to try this today. I'm going to try it on. I'm going to feel better. And honestly, pulling that card every day became like an anchor. I call them anchor activities. I say I have to do one anchor activity a day. I don't know if that's a scientific thing or not. It's just something that makes me feel good. It was making my bed and pulling a card every day. And so I pulled these cards, and then I thought, well, I should make some for moms, right? So I made an affirmation card deck for moms. Then I went down, I sell that, and I got it manufactured, and I was like, oh my, this is so meaningful, so purposeful. And that really started my exit from engineering, really, when I saw that. And I was like, I can see something in my mind, make it happen, and help people. This is awesome. So I did that. And then cards just kept calling to me, and I kept feeling like I need to learn the tarot, and learned it and studied it. And I just realized it's like a great way to read energy and just get a glimpse into like what's going on in my life. And that's how I got into cards. But I'm going to tie this back because one of the cards in my deck says that I created, and all the messages I feel like just kind of came to me. And these were the things I wish somebody had said to me when I was a new mom. And one of them says, no, there's nobody handing out trophies at the end of motherhood, so I do it my way. And I'm bringing it back here to your question, which is like the patterns. It's like I grew up thinking I have to be the best. I have to get the trophy at everything I do. There is no second or whatever place. Like I have to be first place to find value, to be valuable, to be important, to have purpose in this lifetime. Like, and that would manifest in my jobs. When I was an engineer, I had to be the best. I had to look around at everybody else and be like, okay, well, they're doing this and they're doing that, but I'm over here. So I'm safe. I'm good. I am good. I'm a good girl over here because I'm the best, And when I became a mom, I was looking for, how can I be the best mom? And the honest truth is, we're all the best mom we're being with the level of awareness we have in that moment, And that's who I was at that time. And I'm a different mom now, because I've grown, right? But it really was from childhood. It's just like I would like mine out my value from my own experiences and from winning or from being the best, having the best art in class, not getting my card pulled today, having, I don't know, a good grade, like an A in this class, taking an honors class, getting into a program, getting a solo on my color guard, like anything I could do that was like performative is how I would derive value. So I was looking to scratch that itch in motherhood with some kind of trophy. And if anybody's listening and is like, oh, I identify with that, there's no one that will tell you, this is the best, you're doing the best. I mean, it doesn't exist. And I think to be able to find that within myself, and be able to give myself that trophy, whatever that looks like, of I did good today, I did good enough, I survived today, my son is happy, he's fed, he's clean, he's clothed, like that's my trophy today, And being able to like redefine that and not have to need something external has been the journey. So yeah, when I look back at my life, I can see how it was manifesting out in this gotta be perfect, because perfect means number one.
Yes. And there was one thing that you said about like looking for that external validation. I see that all the time. And we are really the only ones that can fill that need. So I often tell people we demand from others what we are unwilling to give ourselves. And it seems like you had that awareness, that aha moment that, oh my gosh, my opinion matters and I can give that to myself.
Yeah, and I mean, I think something you and I, like, we've talked about this, like, you know, in our conversations and things, is like what we demand in others, is like what we need to really be giving ourselves. Man, I used to demand perfection from anybody and everybody. I used to hire so many consultants back when I was working as an engineer, and gosh, I look back and I think, man, I was like holding their feet to the fire on everything because I expected just no mistakes, a perfect performance, a choreographed, you know, experience, and that's not realistic. And here I was holding myself to that standard, right? Because and so it would manifest as me expecting that from others, other service providers, other people, other humans, my friends, like expecting them to be like amazing and perfect friends to show up in the ways I needed them to. And yeah, I mean, I think I've realized now that just doesn't exist. And yeah, being able to give that to myself. I think we hear a lot about people talk about self-love, give yourself love, give yourself the kudos, pat yourself on the back, take care, self-care. And I have a real hard time with all of these messages because I just feel like, at least for me, growing up, being born in the 80s and growing up, that wasn't the vernacular back then. No, and maybe even generations before. And so you have somebody say, take care of yourself, but nobody's showing you how to do it. And you don't have somebody modeling it for you. You don't have a parent that's able to like model that for you. Maybe some people do. And those, I feel like that's sort of a rarity. I think it's going to become more common now. I model that for my kids. Hey, mommy's going to take a break. I'm going to go out with my friends tonight. Oh, mommy's going to go take a bath. I'm taking some alone time. Or mommy's going out, you know, whatever. Like whatever it is. Because I think it's important for us to see it modeled. But I have a hard time when I hear like, just love yourself, because I just think it's hard if you've never done it. I grew up, I didn't know what self-love was. I would derive all that from others. Like they would tell me how good I was.
I don't know if it was simply implied to me or explicitly stated, but I was raised that was wrong.
Yeah.
Like
selfish.
Selfish to love yourself, to care that much. Absolutely. And I think that a lot of people can resonate with that.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember like a story, like I feel like from my childhood, but I remember very clearly, if I put myself first, that was selfish. Another one of my cards says, oh gosh, what was I going to say? Self-care isn't selfish, you know, like taking care of myself isn't selfish. Like but I feel like it has been modeled that way, I feel, for me, in my experience, you know, and I feel like that's a part of the awakening, right? You know, and I know you've been through your own awakening process, and I also just want to say this, that I feel like when people hear spiritual awakening, it can be like a woo-woo thing, I suppose, but I feel like for me, it's just more awareness on like how I live my life and why I made choices I did in the past and how I had no intentionality about why the things I did. I just did them because that was the right thing to do. Go to college because everybody goes to college. Pick a degree that I can make money in because that's what you should do. Like, get a good job because that's what good people, good girls do.
So many rules, so many shoulds. All the time for everything. You said something earlier, like the cards kept calling to me. I just got goosebumps, and I think about this in terms of intuition. If somebody's not tuned into their intuition at this moment while listening to this recording, the cards kept calling to me. What may sound like an odd thing So tell me a little bit more about how you started listening to your intuition more.
Man, it's wild to think that I had no awareness of that before, but I'll tell you this. Now, looking back on my life, I feel like my, whatever you want to call it, your dharma, your destiny, what's calling you, your purpose, your mission, your life's goals, your whatever, your hero's journey, if you follow Joseph Campbell, whatever that is, I feel like it was always calling me, but I never knew that that was the call, right? I never knew, oh, that's that feeling, that little nudge, that inkling, that, maybe I should try this thing. I would always hear it or feel it or sense it and be like, oh, maybe it'd be fun to do this, to go travel over here, to go to this country. I mean, just obscure things, like things that, quote unquote, didn't make sense, weren't on the path, the schedule of life, right? And I would always say no to them because I felt like there was some structure and regime I had to be following to have a fulfilled life. And then I woke up when I had my kids, right? And I was like, there's none of that. But following the intuition, I'll never forget it. The very first time, oh my gosh, this is bringing me back here, Steph. I'm glad you asked me about this. The very, very first time I ever followed my intuition was with my son. He was like maybe 9 months old. He was having problems like just pooping, right? Yeah, we're going to go there. We're talking about poops, little babies' poops. But he was having problems. He was like having problems. And I kept feeling, he like didn't like to do it in the diaper, right? He just, that wasn't, and he would hold it for many days. And that's not good if you have a little one, right? No. And then, it just becomes like a compounding issue. So I remember I felt like I should put him in the bathtub. I remember thinking that. And I was like, no, nobody says that online. Everyone talks about, try this, try these prune juice. And like, I try, all the things, right? And I just kept feeling like I should put him in the bathtub. I just had this knowing I should put him in the bathtub. And then finally, after like 2 days of trying all this shit that didn't work, I was like, F it. And it was Easter. I remember it was Easter Sunday. And I put him in the bathtub and he pooped. And I remember I was like, oh my gosh. Like, that was a knowing. There's nobody that told me that. There was nobody that said it. There was no blogs that had it. There was nothing. It was a knowing. From where? I don't know. It was my own intuition. And after that moment, I was like, I'm going to follow this. And I remember I went to work. This is all during COVID. I went to work, right, on Zoom the next Monday. And we had like an all hands meeting. And there was maybe like 50 or 60 people at my job. And, I'm an engineer. There's a lot of men that work there, right? So they were like, does anybody have anything positive they want to share? And I was like, I want to share that I like felt I heard my intuition, and I shared this with all of these men, all these people on this Zoom call about how I had postpartum depression. This was the first time I felt like I was a good mom because I listened to my own intuition. And it was dead silent, like crickets. And I remember I was shaking like a leaf. I don't know why I felt like I had to share that, but I was so excited. I got so many messages from people afterwards, men, women, all ages, saying like, wow, thank you for bringing some humanity to the conversation. Like, thank you for sharing something that's going on in your life. Yeah. And then somebody else said like, my kids had a problem pooping when they were little. Here, I've always tried this. Like, I understand it. Like, men, full grown, like 50, 60-year-old men, And I remember I went to the park after that and I talked to one of my girlfriends on the phone. She's like, how does it feel to feel alive? And I was like, ooh, yeah. Like, you could feel it coursing through my body. I felt so alive. And I think we've all had that experience at one time when we did something. Like, for me, it was doing the bath and then sharing it on the Zoom. I just felt like I had to share it on the Zoom. I don't know why. I just felt like I had to. And I felt so alive after I did it. Yeah, I was nervous and scared, but felt the fear and I did it anyways. And yeah, it was just sort of this miraculous experience. And I felt like once I did that, I'm like, I can't go back to like living a vanilla life, I guess you would say, or that's just what everyone should do life. I couldn't go back. So yeah, that was my first time following my intuition. And it's a process. I feel like it's like a muscle, right? You go to the gym, you're working out, you're trying to like build your muscle. The first time you go, you're not looking like, so you're ready to be at Muscle Beach in Venice, like you have to go and you have to show up and keep practicing. And I feel like that's what listening to intuition for me has been like.
I totally agree. Totally agree. The more that I tune in, the more that I hear it, the more that I notice it, the more that I trust it. Absolutely.
Yes.
I love that. And
yeah.
I love your reference to feeling alive too. Part of me wants to go down that rabbit hole, and part of me is like, well, maybe that's another podcast episode topic.
I am here for it.
I'm just going to say this little tiny sentence about it. The first time that I heard like the concept of feeling alive, I know it was October 2013. Like I remember. And I thought it was the strangest phrase ever. I was like, I don't understand what this is. And so I'm saying this because if anyone had a reaction to hearing you say feeling so alive, they may be able to resonate with this. And it was because I wasn't. It was because I was suppressing my emotions and suppressing my reactions and suppressing my thoughts and my desires and my wants and everything, suppressing the sensations in my body and my intuition, all of it. And so I wasn't feeling alive. So, okay, that's the bit that I wanted to share about that.
No, but I think that's so valuable because I think there might be somebody out there who's like, I don't know what that feels like. I feel like I'm just cruising through life. I know, that's how I was. And like, you have those, I feel like it's like these flash moments of where you're like, whoa. I feel like we've all done something. It's like the jumping off the proverbial high dive, right? Like once you stand at the edge and you're standing and you're standing and you're standing and you're standing, you're like, I can't do it. And the minute you do it, you feel like, yeah, you're terrified. Then you hit the water. Then you come up. You realize you survived and you're like, oh, wow. And then a lot of times we want to get back up and do it again because it was fun. There's that feeling in our bodies. And I feel like that's what, when you follow your intuition, and I'm not saying it's every single time, like I don't have that like every single day, but when I follow my intuition and things start lining up and I'm like, oh, this feels so good, that feels better than deriving my value and my success and my worth from my achievements. Like it feels so much better in my body to follow my intuition and be excited about my son pooping in the bathtub than it does, doing something prestigious at my job and getting recognized by somebody fancy or whatever. Like, the success I have and the feeling I have in my body is like a 10 out of 10 when I follow my intuition. And I'm like, I want more of this. And I think that's what led me to leaving the job. Yeah. Being like, what else is down this path? Like, this feels like just the beginning, right? So, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So I have one final question, but before I ask that, is there anything else that you want to share about your journey? How where you were at before, how you were feeling, where you're at now, how you're feeling about yourself, anything else on that topic?
I don't know why, but I feel called to just say that like the journey in and of itself of like following my intuition and like waking up and going down this path, it's not like every single day I'm like, this is the greatest, most exciting, most blessed, most whatever path. There are very hard days. I mean, Steph, we talk all the time, right? And like, I'm grateful to have a support in you and like a couple other of my girlfriends too, where we can have these conscious conversations like this. And, I think when you choose to like live an intentional life and like make these choices, sometimes I feel like the call of like the old life comes back and it's like, well, that could be nice. Like that feels very safe because it feels familiar. Like, I don't think it's really for me. I think it feels familiar sometimes. And so I just know if there's somebody out there that feels like, I want every day to be a mind-blowingly Eckhart Tolle experience, it hasn't been that way for me. But I would say by and large, when I look at it, I can't think of living my life any other way. Just because it's been so expansive.
Yes. I have this one memory of you where you were sending me a Marco Polo. And for anybody that doesn't know what that app is, it's basically video text messages. And you were just on this like rant, TED Talk. I don't know how to phrase it. Like, what if? And you were just listing like polar opposite things that you could experience, but like, what if I could be both? What if I can, cry my eyes out and then walk into the room and be this powerful woman? What if, I can't remember every example that you gave, but I just like, I don't know why that just popped into my head. I know why, because you were saying it hasn't been like a walk in the park every day. And I think that there can definitely be this belief and this misconception that like, okay, I need to like make myself think positive, but like, what if you just don't and you just feel it all? And what if that is the greatest gift?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sort of at the place right now where I do think those are the greatest gifts. Having feeling about things and living and experiencing life. And I also want to say this too, like, and I've learned this, right? Like all things can exist at the same time, right? Like I don't have to be spiritual, or a tarot card reader and then like forget my engineering self. Like I can blend those two together. I could do them together. I don't have to. I can today, don't have to tomorrow. Like can do it for the next 6 months and then decide I don't want to. Like, and it's okay. That was another thing. I feel like it was growing up. I never like, there's a big stigma, at least for me, around like being a quitter. I don't know if you can relate to this, but like we don't quit, like quitters, like there's some like negative like mantra or vibe or opinion about quitters. And I used to think, well, if I start something, I better finish it and I need to finish with the gold. And then I think we've had this conversation too. I'm like, I would never start something if I didn't think I could win the Olympic gold medal at it. Like if I could do something and just like have fun at it, that was a no. Like I had to go and be the best and be the gold medalist. And now it's like, why can't I just do something until it doesn't feel good, stop it, and then if it ever feels good again, I can go back to it. And so it's more of like a I don't know, like a ebb and flow life than like, okay, do one thing forever and that's it. So all these things can exist at the same time, and we can shift and move and pivot.
Yes. And I love to think about this in terms of not necessarily like always feeling good, but always feeling true to myself. Because if I make a change, or if you make a change and it doesn't feel good because I'm afraid, that's very different than if like this is genuinely not what I want anymore. And I feel like that, that can be so important, like that distinction for people.
Yeah, and I think we've had this conversation before too, where it's like, this is my truth. It doesn't have to be your truth. It doesn't have to be my neighbor's truth. Doesn't have to be my husband's truth. This is my truth. This is what I believe. This is what I know to be my truth. And I follow that, right? Like, that's my truth. And it doesn't matter that it's not, the truth for people on the internet or for whatever, people on my job or people that are this or people that are that. That's my truth. And like, holding that sacred. And I think, just kind of growing up, I always outsourced that to my parents' truth. This is their truth. Like, and so it was like my way or the highway. Like I adopted their truth as like the ultimate truth of the world. Like that they knew something I didn't. Like they knew better for me than I could know for myself. And it feels like I'm in this like Joan of Arc moment, like finding my own truth and being willing to like go out and like ride my horse with my sword up. Like I am speaking my truth. I'm living my truth. And not that I'm ever trying to convince anybody. Never. That's their, your truth is your truth. But like living my life like in such an aligned way that like I just move forward from that place. Like that I think is so
I love
freeing.
that. Yes. Okay. So, the listeners of this podcast are high achieving women who have these feelings sometimes of, am I broken or why am I like this? So, my question for you is what advice do you have for these women who ask themselves, like, why am I like this, and have these moments where she feels broken?
I would say don't stop asking until you have an answer, because my personal experience has been, why do I feel this way? And I had so many well-meaning or otherwise people just saying, that's just the way it is, Diane. Like, just, pick it up. Just forget about it. Just don't feel it. Like, don't worry about it. And I would have that nagging, like, no, I don't like that I feel this way, or that I keep doing this same thing. I keep looking for somebody to say this to me, and I know it's never coming, right? Or I'm trying to think of like a really specific, like concrete example, like why do I keep feeling like this? But I would say keep asking the question until you get the answer. Don't just say, well, you know what, I should just push that down. Just this is the way life is, I'm not going to get an answer. I should just let it go. Like, I feel like everyone says, Elsa, let it go, from Frozen. But like, no, you don't. I think there's like now I have a belief about surrender, and that's like a conversation for another day. But like, if it's sitting with you, like, don't let it go, and ask yourself, like, why do I feel this way? And keep asking questions. The better the questions you ask yourself, the better the answers you're going to get back. Not just, well, this is the way it is. I think that's a terrible answer to a question, because your own experience and my own experience are very like personalized. And I think about my experiences like when I've been repeating patterns, or I've been feeling frustrated about the same situation again and again and again. And I keep asking myself, why do I keep feeling like this? Like, why is it that I keep having this feeling? And I'm trying to like call on an example or something in my life that is like this. Here, I can think of one. Maybe this is, I don't know if it's like really a perfectionist, but I think we've talked about this before. Like, I used to avoid having parties for myself because I would be super worried that like maybe people wouldn't show up. Maybe nobody wants to celebrate Diane. Like, what if people don't want to come? They say they're going to come and then I'm here all by myself. Like, I would keep repeating the same pattern every single year of like not having a birthday party or not wanting to celebrate anything. I literally didn't even have a bridal shower because I was like terrified that this was going to happen. And I never sat down and asked myself, why do I have that feeling of fear that nobody is going to show up for me? Like, I don't have a specific memory of childhood where that happened, but I have a great big fear as a 35-year-old woman that is going to happen to me. And like asking the questions for myself, and pulling it out of my subconscious and like just understanding why this fear is it's like living with me so strongly, right? Like I said, I didn't even have a bridal shower. Like, that's wild to me now that I think back on it. But I didn't know why I couldn't stop doing it. And I know that's not a perfectionist trait. It's just something that I experienced, but I have plenty of perfectionist traits that would be the same thing. But the better the questions
it works
asked,
because sorry, I interrupted you. It definitely is rooted in an insecurity that you've been working on healing. And so when you asked yourself that question and you brought it up, then you created space to overcome it and to face it. What did you do last weekend?
Yeah, I had a birthday party for my son. Yeah. And I wasn't worried about people coming for the first time. Didn't die. People showed up. Some people, their kids got sick. They didn't come. But it didn't, I don't feel any which way about it. I don't let it mean anything anymore, And not because I just said, well, Diane, just let it go. Don't worry about it. Just don't worry. Like, this is irrational. Of course people are going to show up. And I just want to say this too. My logic mind, and we've had this conversation too, my logic mind gets it. This is irrational. This thought doesn't make any sense. But I couldn't let it go. I mean, this was running my life. I got married 10 years ago, okay? Like, let's be honest here. This is it's our 10-year wedding anniversary this year. So, like, you know, that has been just like the undercurrent of so many decisions in my life around parties or events and things. So, you know, it's like the logic mind knew this is irrational. And I think sometimes I was just telling myself, well, I know this is irrational, so I should just let it go. I should just move on. And it never really, I never really processed the why. Like, but why do I feel like this? Because for me, my experience has been when I ask myself, why do I feel like this? Why?
Yes.
Like, where did this come from? Why is this going on? And I start digging in instead of pushing down. Like, I get in the hole and dig around.
Yes.
Then the gold, I'm mining out the gold nuggets. And then I'm like, wow, this makes so much sense. And then let me tell you, that part of my brain that is like the subconscious part that's like driving the fear, it just disintegrates.
Yeah.
I don't need to suppress it down anymore. It's not like trying to push a beach ball under the water. It's just finally the logic mind's like, yeah, of course, Diane, we've seen it the whole time. And I actually feel it in my body. Yeah, like, who cares if no one shows up? Like,
That's
it's not,
the healing.
you know? Yeah.
I love that you said disintegrate. Oh my gosh, yes, that is healing right there, folks. Okay, so thank you so much for coming on today. If anyone wants to buy a deck of your cards or wants to maximize their maternity leave, what is the best way to find you?
Oh, you're so sweet. So my deck is called The Confident Mom, and my company is Confident Cards. So you can go to confidentcards.org and order a deck on there. And then, if you live in the state of California, I would love to make sure you're maximizing your paid time off with your baby. And that's californiamaternityleave.com. So pretty straightforward with both of those.
Folks.
Yes. Oh, this was so much fun. It feels so like, I want to say it feels good for my soul, right? To have these kinds of conversations. Like, I feel alive right now. Like, for your listeners, like, I feel alive right now, speaking honestly, vulnerably, to share that about the fact that I've had fears about having parties. Like, feels good to talk about these things. And so I think if somebody's out there thinking that, like, here we are, we're living it right now.
I'm so proud of you.
Thanks,
Thank you for coming on today.